You look fine on the outside. You get things done. You smile. You cope. But inside, it's a storm no one sees. You hide it so well. Maybe your thoughts never stop. Maybe you feel everything more deeply than you can explain. Maybe you carry the weight of everyone around you, quietly, and the world calls it intelligence. But what no one talks about are the hidden costs of a brilliant, sensitive mind. In this video, we're going to reveal the 7 silent struggles that highly intelligent minds never confess. Truths inspired by the perspective of Albert Einstein himself. If you've ever felt like your thoughts are too loud, your emotions too deep, and your presence too invisible, this is for you. Because the truth is, you're not broken, you're not too much, you're not alone, you've just been carrying too much in silence. And that ends today. Because once you name these struggles, you begin to free yourself from them. Your body is tired, maybe even exhausted, but your brain, it's busy, replaying conversations, rethinking decisions, jumping from one thought to the next, like a browser with 20 tabs open. You close your eyes, hoping to sleep, but suddenly you're remembering something from 3 years ago, or imagining how a future moment might go wrong. It's not just overthinking, it's never being able to switch off. You're not trying to be dramatic, you just can't help it. Your mind is always analyzing, predicting, remembering, comparing. And sometimes it's not even thoughts, it's feelings. Waves of emotion that rise without warning. A sentence someone said earlier, a look, an unfinished task, a possibility you didn't explore. You live in constant mental motion. And the worst part, no one sees it. To the outside world, you might seem calm, focused, even a little quiet, but inside, it's chaos. Beautiful chaos, maybe. But still chaos. You smile during the day, you get things done, you hold conversations, but deep down, you wish just once you could press pause, that you could experience a moment in complete silence, without inner commentary, without mental rewinding, without preparing for what's next. Sometimes you even envy people who can just chill, who don't seem to overanalyze every detail. You wish you could be more like that, simpler, lighter. But that's not how you're wired. Your mind is sharp, fast, curious. It seeks meaning, it looks deeper, it doesn't settle for the surface. And while that's a gift, it's also incredibly heavy, because when the mind never stops, peace isn't something you find. It's something you have to learn to create. And maybe that's what you've been craving all along. Not escape, not distraction, but quiet. A few seconds of mental stillness. A moment of presence where you're not thinking about what just happened, or what's about to happen, but simply here. That's the first silent struggle. Not because you're broken, but because your mind is powerful, and like any powerful tool, it needs care, not control. Care. There's something uniquely painful about being surrounded by people, and still feeling alone. Not physically alone, emotionally, internally. It's the quiet kind of loneliness that doesn't come from the absence of company, but from the absence of connection. You sit at a dinner table, you walk through your office, you scroll through your messages, and deep down, a part of you is whispering, "No one really gets me." It's not that others don't care. Some probably do. It's just that they can't quite reach you, or you can't quite reach them. Not fully. Because the way you experience the world, it's different. You feel things in layers. You don't just hear what someone says. You feel why they said it. You notice the shift in tone, the look in their eyes, the energy they brought into the room. And while others laugh and move on, your mind stays with the moment. It pulls it apart, it questions it, it remembers. That's not how most people operate, and that's where the disconnect begins. You try to express something deep, and they brush it off. You ask a question from the heart, and they answer on autopilot. You bring your full presence into a conversation, and they give you a distracted glance between phone notifications. Over time, you learn to hold back. You stop sharing the parts of yourself that feel most real, not because you don't want to, but because it's exhausting trying to explain your mind to people who aren't ready to hear it. So you become quieter, more selective. You keep conversations light, even when your inner world is heavy. You smile and nod while your soul is starving for depth. And here's the strange part. You become the one others confide in because you listen, you care, you see. But when it's your turn, no one asks. Or worse, they ask, but they don't stay long enough for the real answer. You end up playing the role of the strong one, wise one, the one who always seems okay. And so, the world keeps spinning, loud, fast, chaotic, while you walk through it like a quiet observer, wondering if anyone else is really awake. You look around and think, am I the only one who feels this much? Am I the only one who sees how fragile everything is? Is there something wrong with me? But here's the truth. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not too sensitive. You're not too much. You're just tuned into frequencies most people ignore. You pick up on what others miss. You feel where others block. You ask questions most don't even think to ask. And while that might make life more complicated, it also makes it more real. It means you're not living half asleep. It means you're present, awake. And yes, that awareness comes with a cost, but it also comes with depth, insight, and beauty that most people will never touch. There's a story that illustrates this well. A young boy once asked his grandfather, "Why do I always feel different from everyone else? Why do I care so much, think so much, cry so easily?" The grandfather looked at him and said, "Because you were born with the eyes to see what others don't, and a heart brave enough to feel it. That's not weakness. It's your gift. But until you find others who see the same way, it will feel like a burden. That's the key. You're not broken, you're just rare. And rare things are often misunderstood by those who are used to the ordinary. So what can you do? First, stop trying to be understood by people who've never taken the time to understand themselves. That's not your mission. Your job is not to shrink or simplify who you are just to make others more comfortable. Second, protect your depth. It's sacred. You don't need everyone to get it. Just a few, or even one, who truly does. And third, stay open. Yes, protect your energy. But don't let the coldness of others turn you numb. Don't let their noise silence your voice. Don't let shallow waters convince you that the ocean doesn't exist, because it does. And there are others like you, quieter, softer, maybe hidden, but watching, waiting, wondering if they're alone too. You're not. Einstein once said, "The monotony of a quiet life stimulates the creative mind." He understood what it meant to live on the edge of the ordinary, to think in ways others didn't, to be misunderstood by the masses, and still keep creating, still keep dreaming, still keep believing in the power of the invisible. So if you ever feel unseen, unrecognized, out of place, remember, the world may not be built for minds like yours, but that doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means you're here to build something new. The second silent struggle is this: living in a world full of people and still feeling like no one sees you. But now, at least here, in this space, you are seen. And that changes everything. There's something you've probably never been able to explain fully, not even to the people closest to you. It's how deeply you feel, even when nothing's directly happening to you. You walk into a room, and you immediately sense what's going on beneath the surface. You feel the tension between two people before they speak. You notice the sadness in someone's eyes, even if they're smiling. You pick up on shifts in energy, tone, posture, things no one else seems to notice. And you don't just notice them, you carry them. It's like your body becomes a container for everything that isn't being said. And that sounds poetic, maybe even powerful, until it becomes too heavy to hold. Because when you feel everything, you also absorb everything. And some of it doesn't leave, it stays. It lingers in your chest after a tough conversation that wasn't even yours to have. It echoes in your mind after hearing someone else's story. It affects how you sleep, how you eat, how you move through the world. And the hard part? Most people have no idea you're carrying all of this. They say you're too sensitive. They tell you to just let it go. But what they don't understand is that you're not choosing to feel this way. It's not drama. It's not weakness. It's your wiring. Your nervous system is tuned differently. You process things through your heart, not just your head. And while that gives you empathy, insight, intuition, it also leaves you emotionally overwhelmed, often without warning. Let me tell you a quick story. A woman once said she stopped watching the news, not because she didn't care, but because she cared too much. Every headline became a wound. Every tragedy felt personal. She would cry over stories she had no connection to. She felt guilty for turning away. But even guilt was better than drowning. And if you've ever felt like that, like the weight of the world isn't just something you see, but something you hold, you're not alone. This isn't just emotional overload. It's energetic saturation. You feel what others suppress. You experience emotion on a full body level. Sometimes, you'll walk into a room and feel off, even though nothing has been said. And later, someone will confirm exactly what your body already knew. And here's the quiet tragedy. Because you're so attuned to others, you often put your own needs last. You show up for people even when you're drained. You listen to pain even when yours has no space to speak. Comfort others even when you haven't been comforted in weeks. Not because you want to be a martyr, but because something inside you can't ignore suffering. You can't walk past someone's emotion and pretend it's not there. Because you feel it too. But this creates a dangerous pattern. You become the emotional support system for everyone around you, while no one holds space for you. And over time, your nervous system starts to pay the price. You feel tired, but not in a way sleep can fix. Your body aches, but you can't explain why. Your mind feels foggy, overloaded. You start avoiding situations not because you're lazy or antisocial, but because your system is begging for relief. And still, you keep showing up, because that's who you are. So let me say something you may not hear often. You're not weak. You're not fragile. You are someone with an extraordinary capacity for emotional depth. And that is rare. It means your presence heals people. Your attention gives others permission to feel. Your words land in places no one else can reach. But even the strongest tree needs roots. Even the most generous heart needs rest. Even the ocean pulls back before it rises again. So how do you protect yourself without shutting down who you are? It starts with one word: boundaries. Not walls, not armor, just boundaries, made of love, not fear. You can be compassionate without absorbing. You can listen without taking on the pain as your own. You can feel deeply and stay rooted in yourself. It takes practice. It takes learning to pause when your system is full. It takes saying no, even when it feels uncomfortable. It takes creating moments of stillness, where your energy can return to you. And it takes the radical belief that you are allowed to care for yourself, not after everyone else is okay, but first. Because here's the truth. If you burn out, your light goes out, and the people who depend on your presence lose it. Self-care is not selfish, it's sustainability. Einstein once said, "We are slowed down sound and light waves, a walking bundle of frequencies tuned into the cosmos." Maybe he wasn't just being poetic. Maybe he understood that we are energetic beings, that we feel vibration before we understand logic. And maybe people like you are simply tuned more finely. And yes, that sensitivity can hurt, but it also heals. It allows you to see others in their fullness. It connects you to life in a way most people can't comprehend. It makes you alive in the truest sense. But to continue living like that, you need space, you need time, you need breath. So here's a simple practice. Every time you feel overwhelmed by energy that isn't yours, pause. Place your hand over your heart and whisper, "This isn't mine to hold." Then take a deep breath, as if you're exhaling what was never meant to stay. Try this once a day, then again, then again. It won't fix everything, but it will begin the process of bringing you back to yourself, piece by piece, because when you start choosing what to carry, you finally remember that your sensitivity isn't a burden. It's a compass. You just need to point it inward too. That's the third silent struggle, feeling too much, especially when it's not even yours. But it doesn't have to break you. Not when you learn how to feel without absorbing. And that, my friend, is a strength few ever master. Some people see the world as it is. You see everything behind it. Where others see a face, you notice the flicker in the eyes. Where someone hears words, you hear what wasn't said. Where most people take things at face value, you see subtext, contradiction, context, all the hidden layers that lie beneath the surface, and it's not something you try to do. It just happens. Your brain doesn't stop at what is. It naturally explores the why, the what else, and the what this might really mean. And while that might sound like a superpower, and sometimes it is, it can also be deeply exhausting. Because when you see more, you carry more. You can't ignore the inconsistency in someone's story. You can't pretend not to notice when someone's smile is hiding something else. You can't let yourself believe something just because it's easier. Your mind won't allow it. You see connections others miss. You sense patterns in people, in systems, in life. And the more you observe, the more you realize most things aren't as simple as they seem. You can't just move on. You can't let it go. You can't stop thinking about it. Because the moment something doesn't add up, your mind starts weaving possibilities. Not out of paranoia, out of pattern recognition. You see the contradiction, the misalignment, the little break in the mask. And whether it's a conversation, a news headline, or someone's tone of voice, once you notice it, you can't unsee it. That kind of perception, it's a blessing, but it's also a burden, because it distances you from people, not by choice, but by awareness. It's hard to feel close to others when you're constantly noticing the gaps in honesty, the limits in their emotional vocabulary, or how often people say one thing but live another. You crave depth, but you often find contradiction. You crave connection, but you're frequently surrounded by people who aren't ready to be fully seen, or to truly see you. So you learn to stay quiet, to listen more than speak, to carry insights alone. Because every time you try to explain what you notice, you're met with discomfort. People either feel threatened, confused, or think you're overanalyzing. And eventually, you realize it's not that you're wrong. It's that you're early. You're seeing what others will only realize months later. You're feeling shifts that haven't reached the surface yet. You're witnessing a reality that most aren't tuned into. And that time gap, that's lonely. It's lonely being right too soon. It's lonely being aware when others are numb. It's lonely noticing everything and having no one to process it with. But here's the thing. This kind of depth doesn't make you difficult. It makes you rare. You weren't meant to fit into surface-level conversations. You weren't built for empty small talk. Your brain isn't wired for simplicity. It's wired for truth. And truth isn't always convenient. But it is necessary, Einstein once said, "The world as we have created it is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking." You're one of the people whose mind has already started changing the lens, asking harder questions, refusing easy answers. And yes, that makes life heavier, but it also makes it more real. There's a price for seeing clearly. You lose your ability to pretend, but in return, You gain something most people never touch: clarity. So what do you do when your mind shows you more than you asked for? First, you stop apologizing for it. You stop apologizing for being the one who notices what others ignore. You stop shrinking your insight just to make people feel comfortable. You stop acting like you don't see what you see, just because others aren't ready. Second, you give yourself time to digest what you absorb. Just because your mind sees it fast doesn't mean your heart can process it fast. So be gentle. Journal what you notice. Speak it out loud in safe spaces. Trust your perception, but protect your peace. And third, you look for others like you, because they're out there. The ones who speak less because they observe more. The ones who ask questions that don't fit into tweets. The ones who carry knowledge without needing to prove it. When you find them, and you will, it'll feel like exhaling after holding your breath for years. This is the fourth silent struggle. Seeing too much, too fast, too clearly, and holding it all in a world that prefers you don't. But that vision, that's not an accident. It's not noise. It's guidance. You were given this perception not to carry the world alone, but to illuminate it, one truth at a time, even if no one sees it yet. There's a very specific kind of emptiness that most people don't talk about. It's not the loneliness of being physically alone. It's something deeper, quieter. It's the experience of being surrounded by people while feeling completely unseen. You go to work, you respond to messages, you laugh at the right moments. From the outside, everything looks normal, functional, social, but inside, you feel like you're operating behind a glass wall, watching life happen, playing your part, yet somehow not fully in it. It's not depression. It's not disconnection from the world. It's disconnection from yourself, in the presence of others. Because when you have a mind that's deep, sensitive, and constantly reflecting, surface interactions just don't satisfy. Small talk drains you. Crowds exhaust you. Loud rooms feel like static in your chest. What you crave isn't company. It's communion. You want to sit across from someone and speak the unspoken. You want to ask, "How are you really?" And have them ask the same, and mean it. You want to talk about the things that matter, the real stuff, the unsaid fears, the quiet dreams, the invisible weights people carry but never name. But most of the world, it's not wired that way. It's rushing, reacting, scrolling. People barely have time to meet your eyes, much less meet your soul. So you learn to adapt. You learn to stay on the surface, even when your inner world is screaming for depth. You nod, you smile, you say you're fine, because you've tried opening up before, and it didn't land. People changed the subject, or looked confused, or gave advice when all you needed was someone to listen. So now, even when you're in a room full of voices, you feel like you're carrying something no one sees. And maybe you are. But that doesn't mean you're broken. It just means your language is different. It means you're tuned into something more subtle, more sacred. You don't want attention. You want resonance. You don't want to be popular. You want to be understood. Einstein once said, "Solitude is painful when one is young, but delightful when one is more mature." He understood what it meant to live on the edges of the social world, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. Because when you spend most of your life perceiving everything, people, meaning, nuance, emotion, it becomes harder and harder to be around noise that has no depth. So here's what I want to say to you. Your hunger for real connection isn't weakness. It's not neediness. It's a sign that your soul is still awake, that you haven't gone numb like so many do. And maybe the reason you feel alone in crowds is because you were never meant to blend in. You were meant to lead others back to something they've forgotten. Stillness, presence, truth. So next time you feel that silence in the middle of the noise, don't resist it. Breathe into it. and remind yourself that emptiness isn't a void. It's a space waiting to be filled with realness. And yes, there are others like you. You just haven't met all of them yet. But one of them might be reading these comments right now. So let's break the silence. If you've ever felt invisible in a room full of people, if you've ever carried your soul quietly through the noise, drop a comment below and say, "I felt this." That's it. 3 words. No overthinking, no over-explaining. Just a moment of truth. Between you and someone else who needs to know they're not the only one. Because maybe the first step toward being seen is having the courage to say, "I'm here." And sometimes, that's enough to start a connection that changes everything. Have you ever looked at someone laughing freely, effortlessly, lightly, and wondered, how do they do that? Not because you're bitter, not because you don't want joy, but because something in you has always felt heavy. Even in your happiest moments, there's a weight you can't quite shake. A part of your mind that's always watching, analyzing, holding on. Even when life invites you to just let go, you don't mean to be serious all the time. You'd love to feel carefree, to be present without second-guessing, to enjoy something without needing to understand or earn it. But that's not easy for you. Because your depth, the very thing that makes you wise, thoughtful, emotionally intelligent, it also makes you carry more than most. You carry memories that won't fade, questions that won't quiet, emotions that aren't even yours. You carry the pressure to be aware, to be good, to get it right. And while others seem to float, you walk with purpose, with reflection, with gravity. You were probably the child who noticed too much, felt too deeply, asked questions adults couldn't answer. You grew up fast. You observed everything. And somewhere along the way, life taught you to be strong, to hold it together, to be responsible, not just for yourself, but for the emotions of everyone around you. So now, even when there's space to relax, you don't. Because your nervous system never learned what safety feels like in stillness. Joy feels suspicious. Rest feels unproductive. Lightness feels irresponsible. And here's the quiet truth. It's not that you don't want peace. It's that you don't know how to trust it. You've been trained, by experience, by trauma, by culture, to be on alert, to anticipate the next problem, to stay sharp, to always be one step ahead. And joy, lightness, they don't fit into that rhythm. So you hold your breath, you keep going, you keep carrying. But inside, there's a longing, a soft ache for something simpler. A moment where you don't have to be anything for anyone, not even for yourself. Just be. It's a difficult thing, learning how to live lightly, especially when your mind is heavy with thought and your heart is full of feeling. But here's the thing no one tells you. You don't have to abandon your depth to experience lightness. They're not opposites. They're partners. Lightness isn't about escaping. It's about allowing joy to visit without guilt, allowing laughter to come without needing to justify it, allowing yourself to rest, not because you earned it, but because you're alive. Einstein once said, "Play is the highest form of research." And maybe he wasn't just talking about science. Maybe he understood that the mind, no matter how brilliant, needs freedom, needs moments of softness, needs time to wander, without solving or fixing or proving. So what does that mean for you? It means you can keep your insight and still feel joy. You can hold wisdom and still laugh like a child. You can see the depth of the world and still float for a while on its surface. Not because you're giving up your seriousness, but because you're choosing to balance it. And if it feels hard, that's okay. It's not supposed to be instant. It's something you practice, little by little. Maybe it starts with 5 minutes in the sun. Maybe it's singing out loud when no one's around. Maybe it's allowing yourself to say, "I don't know," and letting that be enough. Maybe it's laughing, even when life isn't perfect, especially when it isn't. Living lightly doesn't mean living shallowly. It means giving your soul permission to breathe again. So if you've forgotten how to play, how to be silly, soft, spontaneous, I get it. But don't give up on that part of you, because it's still there, waiting for the day you choose to put the weight down, even for a moment. And remember, you weren't born just to carry. You were born to feel, to love, to live, and yes, to laugh. Even with all your depth, even with everything you've been through, there's a point where thinking, which has always been your strength, starts to feel like a prison. It happens slowly, quietly. At first, it's just reflection. You replay a conversation, analyze a choice, try to make sense of something that felt off. That's normal. That's how your mind works, always reaching for meaning, understanding, control. But then, it doesn't stop. One thought becomes 3. 3 become 30. And before you realize it, you're spiraling. Caught in a loop you can't escape. Not because you're dramatic, not because you want to suffer, but because your mind doesn't know how to stop. And here's what most people don't realize about this struggle. It's not just overthinking, it's overfeeling too. You don't just think about what happened. You feel it again. You live it again. You reabsorb the emotion, the tension, the questions that were left unanswered. And the longer you stay in that loop, the harder it becomes to come back to the present. Suddenly, your thoughts are dictating your mood. Your memories are shaping your energy. You become emotionally exhausted without ever having moved a muscle, and that's what makes this struggle so invisible. Because on the outside you look fine, but inside, you're stuck. You want to be productive, but your mind won't cooperate. You want to rest, but your thoughts won't let you. You want peace, but the same story keeps playing. Over and over again. You try distractions, you try logic, you try positive thinking, and maybe they help for a while. But the silence always returns, and when it does, so does the mind. Ready to overanalyze, ready to reopen old wounds, ready to turn stillness into static, and you ask yourself, why can't I just turn this off? Why does my brain feel like a battlefield I live in every day? Here's the truth. Your mind isn't trying to hurt you. It's trying to protect you. It's scanning, sorting, predicting, preparing. It thinks that if it can just figure it all out, you'll finally be safe. It's trying to shield you from future pain by controlling the past, which, of course, never works. And that's where the suffering lives, in the gap between what your mind wants to fix and what life refuses to let you control. But here's the shift. You don't need to control your mind. You need to relate to it differently. Einstein once said, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." That includes the way we think about our thinking, because the problem isn't that you think deeply. The problem is that you've learned to live entirely in your head and forgotten what it feels like to come home to your body, your breath, your presence. You've learned to value thought over sensation, analysis over intuition, control over surrender, and now it's time to return. Not to silence your mind, but to stop letting it drive everything. So here's something simple you can practice. Every time you notice the spiral beginning, pause, close your eyes, put one hand over your chest, the other over your stomach, and ask, where am I right now? Not mentally, physically, energetically, emotionally. Then breathe, slowly, deeply, and say, out loud or in your mind, I am safe, I am here, I'm more than my thoughts, because you are. You're more than the loops, more than the fears, more than the memories that try to hold you back. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them, and the more you practice remembering that, the less power the spiral has. That's the 7th silent struggle. getting trapped in the brilliance of your own mind, and forgetting that you're allowed to step out. But now, you can think deeply and live freely. You can be reflective and embodied. You can honor your thoughts without being ruled by them. The door out of the mental prison isn't locked. You've just been knocking from the inside. You've just heard 7 silent struggles, and maybe as you listened, something in you whispered, "That's me." If it did, I want you to pause now. Take a breath. Let that feeling settle. Because here's something the world rarely tells people like you. You're not broken. You're just deep. You feel more because you notice more. You carry more because you care more. You think more because you see more. And yes, that comes with a cost. It makes it harder to rest, harder to let go, harder to just be when your mind is always observing, always processing, always holding the unseen. But it also means you have a kind of inner richness the world desperately needs. In a time where most people are numbing, performing, or pretending, you are still alive inside. That is rare. And sometimes, pain is just the echo of that aliveness. A signal that says, you haven't gone numb, you still care, you're still here. But caring doesn't mean carrying at all. Feeling deeply doesn't mean drowning. Thinking deeply doesn't mean being trapped in your mind forever. There's a way to live with your depth, without being consumed by it. And that begins with one simple thing: making space. Not space to produce, not space to fix, just space to feel, to breathe, to let your soul come back from hiding. So here's what I want to invite you into, starting tomorrow. A small ritual. Just 5 minutes. Before you open your phone. Before you open the door. Before the world starts rushing in. I want you to pause. Place your hand over your heart. Close your eyes. And ask gently, without pressure. What do I need today? Not to succeed, not to perform, but simply to feel like myself again. Let the answer come. A word, a feeling, a small desire. Then imagine living that version of the day. Not perfectly, not completely, just intentionally. Maybe it's choosing quiet over noise, or presence over productivity, or saying no without guilt, or saying yes to something your heart has been craving. The world won't stop for you to do this. But that's the point. You stop for you, even if no one else understands. Even if the habit isn't there yet. Even if your mind resists at first, because you've spent so long adapting to life. Maybe it's time to let life adapt to you. This isn't about fixing anything. It's about remembering something. That behind all the thoughts, the feelings, the spirals, the empathy, the silence, there's you. And that part of you? It's still whole, still vibrant, still full of light. You haven't lost yourself. You've just been busy surviving. Now, maybe it's time to start living again, softly, gently, with awareness, with choice. So take this moment now, right now, to simply breathe. Feel your body. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Let the inner war settle. Because this is the beginning, not of a new performance, not of a new version of you, but of something even more powerful, a return to your center, to your inner silence, to the kind of peace that doesn't scream, but hums softly beneath everything. And if this video gave you something, a reflection, a breath, a sense of being seen, I want to invite you to leave one thing in the comments. What are you choosing to release today? Just that. A word, a sentence, a gesture of letting go. Let it be your first step. Because sometimes, healing doesn't begin with answers. It begins with a pause, a breath, and the courage to say, "This is what I no longer need to carry." If this video touched something in you, if it felt like someone finally put your experience into words, then don't leave this space in silence. Type in the comments, "This is what I no longer need to carry," and complete the sentence. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read to feel less alone. And if you want to keep walking this path with more peace, more presence, more truth, subscribe to the channel. We're building a quiet place in a loud world. One reflection at a time.